that Africa had finally claimed its freedom. But what if the chains never disappeared? What if they were simply replaced by contracts? Behind China's billion-dollar railways, stadiums, and glowing infrastructure projects lies a deeper, darker agenda. This isn't generosity, it's a strategy. From hidden debt traps to long-term land leases, from secret clauses to silent takeovers, China's influence is expanding across Africa, not with soldiers but with checkbooks, not through violence but through control of vital resources and infrastructure. Zambia gave up its airport, Kenya teeters on default, and many African leaders shake hands, unaware or unwilling to admit what's truly being signed away. Is this a partnership or a quiet return to colonization? This isn't just politics. This is a global power move, and Africa may be the prize. In this video, we uncover China's secret strategy, how it plans to quietly recolonize Africa without a single shot fired. It started with a smile. They called it partnership. China extended a hand, not with guns, but with gold. Promises of roads, hospitals, power plants, and towering glass buildings. Africa welcomed the help. After all, who else was offering billions without lectures? The West had pulled away. Their aid came with strings, their loans came with judgment. But China asked no questions, no demands for human rights or political reforms, just deals, simple, fast, and flattering. African leaders embraced the new friend. Projects launched overnight. Airports, dams, mega highways, city skylines transformed. Citizens cheered as concrete rose from dirt. But hidden beneath the freshly laid asphalt was something no one saw coming: a price. These weren't gifts. These were loans, enormous loans, signed in silence, tucked away in fine print. Loans with interest rates, with deadlines, and with consequences. China had learned from history. Colonizers used ships and flags, but modern power, it comes through debt, dependence, and control. By the time people started asking questions, it was already too late. Infrastructure was built, but so was a trap. And the trap was closing fast.
China's success as a source of hope and inspiration as we engage with the task of finding our own solutions.
At first, the projects were a dream, gleaming railways that cut through the savannah, highways that seemed to stretch into a prosperous future. Africa was on the move, or so it seemed. But here's the truth. They don't print on the brochures. Almost none of it was free. Behind the headlines of investment was a web of complex Chinese loans, billions upon billions, handed out to struggling African governments, many with no clear repayment plan. Entire nations mortgaged their futures in return for concrete promises. When the bills came due, the cracks began to show. Zambia handed over control of its international airport. Uganda nearly lost its only major seaport. In Kenya, the Mombasa-Nairobi Railway, celebrated as a miracle, became a burden bleeding money as repayment deadlines loomed. These weren't just debts, they were levers, economic pressure points China could pull at any moment. And here's the catch: defaulting on one of these massive loans doesn't just mean economic failure, it means sovereignty slipping away, piece by piece. Ports, airports, natural resources, strategic land, leased out or controlled under the table. This isn't colonization with soldiers, it's colonization with contracts. And while the West slept, China was rewriting the playbook. On the surface, the deals looked like lifelines. Roads, hospitals, power plants, all funded by Chinese banks, built by Chinese firms, using Chinese materials. But here's what no one tells you. Most of these contracts were never meant to be fair. They're structured with one goal in mind: to ensure dependence. African countries often had no room to negotiate. The clauses? Ruthless. Delayed repayment triggers hidden fees. Interest rates are far higher than global standards. And the biggest trap of all? Collateral clauses. Land, minerals, or infrastructure quietly promised if payments fail. It's not just business, it's a loaded game, and Africa walked in blind. Let's take Angola. They handed over billions in oil barrels before seeing a single brick laid. In return, substandard infrastructure and murky cost breakdowns. Or Djibouti, now home to China's first overseas military base. Coincidence? Not a chance. Every blueprint came with invisible strings, and here's the twist. When things go wrong, when the money runs out or leadership changes, China doesn't pull back. They tighten the grip. Renegotiations happen behind closed doors. New terms, new conditions, and always more control. This isn't foreign aid. It's a strategy. A chessboard with Africa as the middle game, and the king's already cornered. This was never just about kindness. It's about power, resources, control. Africa holds 90% of the world's platinum, over 60% of global cobalt, massive reserves of rare earth elements, the ones needed to build smartphones, electric cars, satellites, missiles. Without Africa, China's tech dominance, dead in the water. So they came quietly, not with tanks but with contracts, bulldozers and debt. Mines were bought, farmlands leased for 99 years, railways laid not to connect cities but to extract faster. And it's not just raw materials. China wants markets. 1.4 billion Africans, a young rising population hungry for tech, cheap goods and fast internet. Guess who builds the towers, wires the networks and owns the apps? Huawei, TikTok, Transsion. The continent is wired with China's digital fingerprints. But it's deeper. In Zambia, when the government defaulted on Chinese loans, Beijing took control of a major airport. In Kenya, the fear is that Mombasa Port, a key national asset, might be next. This isn't colonization with flags and uniforms. It's done with servers, cement, and silent signatures. Africa's wealth is being traded, and many don't even realize it. They're not just investing, they're positioning for the long game. The script is old, the actors have changed. Europe once came with guns and Bibles. China comes with grants and construction crews. But make no mistake, the goal remains. Extract, expand, exploit. They call it development aid, but it's tied with strings so tight it strangles. Chinese companies build the roads, using Chinese materials, Chinese labor, and Chinese machines. Africans, they watch, they repay, and those repayments aren't just money, they're influential. If a country can't pay back, it surrenders something bigger. Policy freedom, voting with China at the UN, rejecting Taiwan, allowing military bases or surveillance deals. This is not an invasion with boots, it's a takeover with terms and conditions. Many leaders take the deals, desperate for roads, ports, hospitals, and who can blame them? But what if the cure is just another cage? China doesn't need to rule African nations. They only need to own the levers, trade routes, telecoms, infrastructure, and influence. This is colonialism with a makeover. No whips, just Wi-Fi. And Africa? It's standing on the edge between opportunity and ownership. At first, there was silence, but silence never lasts. From Lusaka to Lagos, whispers turned into questions, then into rage. Why are our forests fenced off? Why are our debts rising? Why are our jobs gone? The people began to see. It wasn't just money flowing in, it was controlled. From dusty town halls to Twitter timelines, a storm was building. African voices, once ignored, now roared with defiance. In Zambia, a public outcry stopped the sale of a major power company. In Ghana, villagers protested against illegal Chinese gold mining operations poisoning rivers. In Uganda, citizens demanded transparency over secret railway contracts. And, slowly, the truth came into view. Development isn't always partnership. Sometimes it's just profit. But resistance doesn't come easy. Speaking up comes with consequences. Some were silenced, some were labeled anti-progress, some disappeared, yet the movement kept growing. A new generation of Africans, bold, connected, unafraid, is rising, not against China, but against blind dependency. Because the fight isn't East versus West, it's Africa versus exploitation, in all its forms. This was never just about loans, it was never just about roads, rails, or bridges. It was about power. The kind of power that doesn't knock on the front door. It slips in quietly, through contracts, interest rates, and promises dressed as progress. China saw Africa not just as a continent, but as a strategic opportunity, a way to rewrite global order, with Africa as the prize. And Africa must now decide, not tomorrow, not in 10 years, now. Because every signature carries a consequence, every aid package may come with chains. This isn't paranoia, it's pattern recognition. What happened there could happen here, but it doesn't have to. Africa still holds the pen to its future. It can choose fair partnerships, not silent colonization. It can rise on its own terms. So to every African leader, student, worker, and thinker, ask the hard questions, read the fine print, speak the uncomfortable truths. Because the next 50 years won't be about guns or empires. It'll be about contracts, cooperation, and control. And if we don't own the terms, we'll be owned by them. This is Nke Oma Documentary TV. Subscribe for more untold truths they'll never teach you in school.